speech or for any political activity as may disproportionately against senior officials of the United Democratic Party. I make reference to the TRRC report because a whole page was dedicated to this question of security agencies being weaponized against the United Democratic Party. This is not what UDP said, it is the TRRC report that said. So this is the context, ladies and gentlemen of the media, that whenever events of this nature happen, we are compelled to come out and set the record straight. The commitment of the party to the rule of law, I don't think any Gambian or any, even our adversaries and opponents would doubt our commitment. But there are laws in the law books of the Gambia that seriously need to be reformed. And we have been calling for these reforms time without number. So it is in this context that we would urge our compatriots, our rivals in the political frame, the National Human Rights Commission, the Inter-Party Committee, all the stakeholders, our development partners, to look at law reform as a way to deal with our democratization process. On that note, ladies and gentlemen of the media, it is my great pride and honor and privilege to invite the Secretary General.
I can say for certain that Ibrahim Adiba did not have a good weekend because I'm sure he did not have his usual afra, so he could have had a good weekend. But sure, we certainly did have a good weekend, and we that did have a good weekend in Queen Island. And thank you really for responding to our invitation. And one thing that the media and indeed the political class is aware of is that the president is mandated by the Constitution to really make tours of the country at least twice in the year in order to familiarize himself with the current state of affairs, as well as to at least know what impact government policies have had on the Gambian people. Is a constitutionally mandated tour, and indeed a mandated tour that is supposed to be undertaken in order to address government policies. Now, what we have seen in the last few days, I'm not sure whether that was really the type of tour mandated by the Constitution. What we have seen in the past days was a tour that was calculated to really create a wedge among Gambian people, between Gambian peoples. It was a tour that was designed, or at least it was a tour that the president used in order to have, as they would say, to really target individuals for insults, target individuals for really unsavory statements. It was a tool really the president used in order to vent rejection of particular race, that is the Nar race. It was also a tool that the president used to demean his opponents. It was a tool also that the president used to really show how much he was in cohort with the business community. And then I think it was also a tool that the president used to really show how much he has approved corruption in this country. Instead of the president really explaining to the Gambian people what policies he has for them, instead of the president really using this tool as an opportunity to really tell the Gambian people what he was prepared to do in the health sector, in the education sector, in the agricultural sector, he really went out on a tirade on individuals. And we do not think that the Gambian taxpayers' money was really being properly used. I know the president always acts like a rabid dog. When a rabid dog sees water, the way it behaves, that is how the president behaves when it comes to matters on issues affecting the United Democratic Party. Was there any justification for the president to refer to UDP as a banner party? Because he didn't say UDP, but we all know that it was UDP that was referring to as a banner party. It is the UDP's bureau, because they said that they were going to open their bureau, the banner party were going to open their bureau. But postponed it when they heard that we were coming out to really open and inaugurate bureaus that that you can call a proper bureau. They postponed the inauguration of their NAR bureaus because he was going out. We think that this was very insulting. We think that this was very demeaning. This was very, very unpresidential for the president to reduce himself to the level of what I would call veranda politicians. I think that's not what ought to happen, what the president ought to have done. Calling the bureaus NAR bureaus, we strongly believe, in fact, we conclude that he was referring to the bureaus that he thinks Talib Ahmed Bensouda will subsequently inherit from we, the current leadership of the United Democratic Party. You couldn't have anything more insulting, more degrading than such a statement from the president of a country who should be addressing the everyday problems of the Gambian people. But rather, he is so obsessed with the United Democratic Party. He is so obsessed with who would be the person contesting against him, and in fact, think that it is Talib Bensouda that is why he says, Birol Bela Lonkampo, Narol Bela Bana Jedo, Abela Bana Narol Lebu. And Naro, Abela Bana Narol Melbu. There's only one Nar we see in the United Democratic Party leadership. Only one Nar, and that Nar is Ahmed Talib Bensouda. Should the president go that low? Should the president really reduce himself to the level of a veranda boy, to the extent of really categorizing our bureaus as NAR bureaus, and then also saying that it will be the NAR that will take it over? That, we believe, is really wedging is really creating a wedge between Gambians. It is the sort of statement that you would hear from leaders that are divisive, leaders that do not have any intention of creating a unified society. It is the sort of statement that you will find from people who are really laying the ground, preparing the ground for division among the Gambian people. It was not only that statement that we find on presidential, but it was also asking his supporters that if anything, if anyone should insult them, they should be prepared to fight. And of course, al super aliye kele al ta turon te dam mambulu al si keloke mbal koma. Well, I want to say, gentlemen of the press, that such a statement is really inciting. Telling supporters to fight is inciting. And we do not expect the President of the Republic of the Gambia to really make statements that are incendiary, statements that really urge sections of the community of the Gambian society to really become violent. He is encouraging violence. And one thing I know is that the United Democratic Party will not encourage violence, but the United Democratic Party will be prepared to use violence to meet violence. We are not compromising on that. We will use violence to meet violence. If you come to us with violence, we'll meet you with violence. That we certainly will not sit down and allow anyone who believes that he has the backing of the government of the Gambia to meet violence to us, and we sit down passively and not meet that violence with violence. That is not a threat. I want to tell you, Mr. President, that is a promise. We are asking your people to use violence against us. We will use violence to defend ourselves. If you think you can use the security forces against us, we say we'll be prepared to meet any section of the security forces, be they police, be they soldiers, be they PIU, citizens of this country. If you want to use them against us, weaponize them against us, we will certainly stand up against them to protect our rights, that nobody will really reduce us to, people who do not have rights in this country. We are prepared to die for it, and we are prepared to go to jail for it. We want to make sure that this country is governed by the laws, but if anyone also wants to really misuse the laws by giving improper orders, we will not obey any order that is improper. And we want to tell you, Mr. President, that we will not be intimidated. The arrest of Mr. Diba is not going to intimidate us. In fact, the arrest of Mr. Diba has really made us be better resolved and to be better determined that we will not allow the dictatorship of the past to go back, to return to this country. What we did to keep that dictator, to keep that former dictator, what we did to keep it under control, we will do the same thing with your government, we will do the same thing with you, Adama Barrow. We will not allow you to really come on and treat us as trash. I'm trying to use the right words, not really to be insulting, not to be words that are not proper, but then we want to we'll tell you that we will keep you at bay as we did with Jammeh. No amount of intimidation will cow us down. We want to tell you that what we did until you came to power, we will do the same thing to make sure that our rights are protected. This country belongs to all of us. Keep on intimidating us. What we expect of you, Mr. President, is that you will create the environment that allows for free political discourse. We know that the past regime weaponized the judiciary and weaponized the police against the United Democratic Party. I am sure the judiciary, under the leadership of Honorable Chief Justice Hassan Jallow, will not be weaponized. I cannot say so for the police. But whatever you do in weaponizing any institution, we will stand up against those institutions. And I want to advise the police, those who are in charge of investigations, those who are in charge of prosecutions, that you were in this country in the under the Jammeh era. You all went into exile. You went into exile because the conditions in this country forced you to go to exile. Because the police was being weaponized, and some of you who are today in responsible positions in the police suffered because of the weaponization of the police. You left this country, went abroad, you have your families there. You have come back to the Gambia, and you should not allow yourself to be used by the Barrow administration. I can tell you, we still have our connections in the United Kingdom. We have our connections in the United States of America. We have our connections in all other countries in Europe, democratic countries of Europe. And we are cataloging all that we are doing here. And you know you are putting your families in jeopardy by really helping and undemocratic, by helping a government to do things that are out of order, a government that is violating the Constitution. And you know the consequences of that for your families. We'll inform them, we'll give those governments all the things that we are doing in this country so that your families so that we can get your family sent back to Gambia. And we can do it unless you stop what we are doing. All the things that we are cataloging, and we are going to hand them over to the governments of the United States of America and to the government of the United Kingdom through our connections. Because you cannot really enjoy, or your families cannot continue to enjoy the facilities, the privileges of those democratic governments, and you are here being used as instruments. You are here used as weapons against parties or organizations that are doing, all that they are doing is what is legitimately their right to do. So this is an advice to members of the security forces who are being weaponized, that in allowing yourself to be used as weapons, we are exposing your families in those countries, we are exposing them to being really denied what they are using, you are putting them in jeopardy because they can be sent back because there's no longer the issue of fear that the issue of fearing any persecution. Now, we have told that some of our members are engaged in insults. I don't think there's anything that can be as false as that. It's the greatest falsehood that the Barrow administration and their acolytes are peddling about. Who started insults in this country? Who started insults in this country? Who started insulting opponents in this country? I remember in December 2018 or so, when the foundation stone for the roads and the bridges in URR was being laid, did President Adama Barrow stand there in the presence of everybody? You, in fact, addressed the nation that day in local language in Manding after presenting the English version. He said, Nimo Atalomana Patio, Wamtonya, but Nimmeko Italo Wamulia. Who said so? He really started insults. And everybody knew that was an apparent reference to me. You can say you own the United Democratic Party, but if you say you own the people, you are lying. So, people want to believe that the United Democratic Party is the party that insults. It is NPP who started it. Adama Barrow started it. He laid the ground. He laid the ground rules. Didn't we see a nominated member of parliament at I-22 address Gambian people? An event that was covered by GRTS. Didn't we hear her say, "Hello, Keba Jahilo"? What can be more insulting than that? Keba Jahilo, you don't think that is seditious? You don't think so? But if you say, Imam Femno, say that is seditious. They were there, they clapped for only Honorable Ahmad Ba took objection to that, what we saw in the video. Only Honorable Ahmad Ba took objection to it. Adama Barrow clapped his hand, he laughed and raised his feet up. We saw that. Keba Jahilo is nothing that would create disharmony, disunity, and disaffection in the community. Imam Fellow, that could. As far as I know, Fellow, that in English, I think it means ignorance. Ignorance. So, if one goes on a national tour, and that tour is supposed to be used to familiarize yourself with the current conditions of the country, familiarize yourself with the impact of government policies, if you reduce that to, say, this is narcotic, you reduce that to caricaturing people that they have lost, they have networks, caricaturing people. Suddenly, someone who is ignorant of the import of Section 222(15), only people who are ignorant of that, would certainly do this sort of things. And certainly, if anyone does anything outside Section 222(15) of the Constitution, you can be rightly say that, he doesn't know it. He's ignorant of it. A man learned. Yeah? But since it's a matter that I understand is likely to go to the courts, and we'll just not make any further comments on it. But that talk, it was wasteful. How many ministers went on that talk? I would have thought that in the state in which we are, government would have made some savings. In every region in this country, you have a director of agriculture. In every region. In every region in this country, you have a regional education officer. In every region in this country, you have a regional director of health. So, what do you need? And of course, representatives of the Ministry of Local Government, even though they might not have been qualified, but you have every governor. So that all the departments are represented in the regions. Do you need to take the permanent secretaries and their ministers? Every issue that is raised by the local people, the local communities, the directors are there who could take note of it. The directors are there to really brief the president on the state of education. The regional directors of education are there. The needs of the schools in those regions, people can talk about them. The regional directors will take those, and then when the president finishes his talk, reports will be compiled. So that is wasteful. Take all these ministers, and then of course, you see an array of jacks in their sunglasses there in their assorbis. Yes, and these people, they are all catered for in terms of accommodation, in terms of transportation, in terms of feeding, all on our national coffers. You cannot have really a tour as wasteful as that tour. You have your AI companies there, your chairman, all these people. How many government vehicles have been deployed? I hope our members of the National Assembly put the right questions. The fuel that is used, that was consumed in this store. Hope we are told how many liters and how much that cost the government. I'm so it's into the millions. All doing what? To promote NPP agenda. We are inaugurating NPP bureaus at the expense of the government taxpayers. Any sensitive government will really, period, the situation in these countries, no government will really do that. If it is for inauguration of the hospitals or the clinic, as I said, the Minister of Health, at least, should have been given the honor to do that, particularly the clinic in Jali. The Minister of Health should have been given the honor to really inaugurate that in his own home village. But it's all politics, and they think that you can use our money, go on a political campaign, and leave us not to talk. That's not the only thing that we think this government has been found wanting in. I do not remember when President Adam Barrow has talked about corruption, even in the State of the Nation address. If it mentions it, it will just be 2 lines. Gentlemen of the press, since when did Minister Abasanya leave office? Since when did he leave office? It's almost coming to a year. The reason why he left office, he himself alluded to it. Things were not all right. Have you heard anything about Abasanya's case since then? He said they were going to conduct investigations into allocations of land around the Kamalo area. Have you heard anything about that since then? And there was a time, the diplomatic passport issue, there were updates about it. But since Abasanya left office, under cloudy circumstances, we have not heard anything. So, we of the United Democratic Party believe that Abasanya's case, nothing is being done about it, because if it is pushed, several other people would get stayed, tainted, mentioned, and they would be Abasanya's accomplices. You cannot deal with Abasanya without really dealing with those people, the sacred cows. I asked Adam Barrow to come out through your spokesperson and tell us what is happening with the Abasanyan case. What we are talking, I think Abasanyan's case was an issue of, one of them was an issue of allocation of land at Kamalo. But Mr. President, I know as a fact that the property, there's a property on South Atlantic Road, which is the official residence of the Chief Justice. I know I have visited Sir Philip Bridges when he was occupying the house, when he was residing in the house. I know I have visited Chief Justice Ayola when he was there. But now that property, Mr. President, we want to know today who owns that property today. We want you to make full and frank disclosure, because that is government property. That is not a layout. And that property should be reserved as the official residence of the Chief Justice. It's a government property. We are told, Mr. President, we are told, and for you to clear the air, that that property has been allocated to you, government property. It's for you now to clear the air, because that cannot be. That is not right. You cannot use your office, you cannot use your position to really have that property allocated to you. That is government property, meant for the official residence of the Chief Justice. But it's for you now to clear it, to clear the air. Because if you are fighting corruption, you yourself must not get involved in transactions that are questionable. You must be like Caesar's wife, above board. I ask you, Mr. President, to clear the air. And I have no evidence, but I am told that one of your friends, a businessman, is in fact in charge of the construction of the house on that property. Mr. President, these are things that you have to clear for us, because when we pounce on Jaite, permanent secretary, And the others, not that they have done, what they have done is right, what they have done is wrong. That's why they have been tried. If you really can pounce on Bamba Banja for $50,000, then government property that is alleged to have been taken by you, we have to have something clear about that. Because it's not a layout that will say you apply in the normal way for allocation to be made to you. We don't want to accuse you of having given directive to the Ministry for Lands to give that property to you. So I asked you to really clear that doubt. And I repeat again here that the bureaus which you say the businessmen build them for you or for your party, Mr. President, tell us the names of the businessmen who built your bureau in Bansang, your bureau in Karawat, your bureau in Soma, the one that is being constructed in Brikama, and the one that is going to be constructed in Banjul. Tell us the businessmen who are doing that great favor for you. Tell us how much each of those businessmen have contributed in building these bureaus. We are constructing a bureau in Soma. I think for the past 5-6 years, we have been constructing it. It's coming from the pockets of Ajiskainaka, Ajiyam Seka, Tali Bensuda, Hussein Dabo, and my wives. Yaya Menten Sanya. We are the people who are contributing, put our money together, and building that bureau. And it's, by the way, I don't think you call that one as a NAR bureau, because that's a story building. But the one in Quinaland, which we inaugurated yesterday, we built it. Tell us the business people who contributed in building. Because we want to say that your government is being corrupted. Your party is being corrupted. That is what we want to say. Unless you can tell us that the money comes from clean sources. But, Mr. President, it is not only the proper allocation at on South Atlantic, that's marks of corruption. We are not saying this, but it's marks of corruption unless there is clarity. But if you are really serious in the fight against corruption, all the revelations that are coming out of the local government inquiry, Mr. President, one would have thought you would really do something now. One would have thought that even if the local government commission has not made any interim orders for them to go on leave, you, in your conscience, you, in your commitment to fight against corruption, would at least get the Minister for Local Government to do something about that. People confess every day of having stolen money from us. People agree that they have given money to governors, which was improper, and still those people are in office. Mr. President, I mean, your resolve in fighting corruption becomes doubtful, unless you really take action against those people. I'm not concluding that the real commission will find those people culpable, but at least there's some prima facie evidence that should really spur you into doing something. We just concluded the OIC. That's right. I would always congratulate you for really becoming the chairman of the OIC. I'll always congratulate you. It is a pride for all of us Gambians that for once, ECOWAS denied you becoming chairman, AU denied you becoming chairman, but 57 member country organization. So it fit to really cede chairmanship of that organization to you. I congratulate you. We are proud of you and we pray for you. We'll work with you so that your tenure as chairman of OIC is successful. Because if it succeeds, it will be a pride for all of us at Gambians. But, Mr. President, the vehicles, I've seen those vehicles, I've seen some of them now given to ministers. I think that is wrong, Mr. President. Those vehicles should be left with the OIC Secretariat. Mr. President, you say you want to make this country a destination, center, a conference destination. We must leave those vehicles and they become to constitute the fleet of the OIC conference vehicles. We have seen them with ministers. This morning, this afternoon, I saw one of them parked at the premises of a minister. And before I got here, I crisscrossed with the road with another one being used by a minister. Mr. President, that is not the time. You don't make these vehicles osusu. Just, giving out among yourselves. No. I had a story, I had something, I dismissed it. That, it was being shared. That one particular individual had about 10. Well, I dismissed that as not true. But it's possible that that particular individual had 2. But, Mr. President, I'm saying that that is not a proper use of those vehicles. After all the ministers had their vehicles. They were all roadworthy. They were using those vehicles before the OIC vehicles came in. Why do we have to give them new vehicles? And by the way, we understand the tender was for 100 vehicles. 100 vehicles, that was the tender. So the agreement and the contract was for the supply of 10 vehicles. But less than 10 vehicles have been supplied. What about the remainder? We are not being told anything about the remaining. I think, is it 82 or 83? 83. So you people who know arithmetic, about 17 more have not been delivered. And we are not told what is happening to them. And again, Mr. President, if you are serious about fighting corruption, all these things will be made clearer to the nation. We have 2 vehicles outstanding, during the cost of which I think is 12 million per vehicle. So 12 times 17. How many millions are that? 12 million times 17. You are the calculator. You use your calculator, and you'll be able to tell us. We are not saying, I'm not by any imagination saying that, Mr. President, that there's something crooked. But I'm saying that has not been accounted for. The tender was for 100 vehicles, and the 100 vehicles have not been supplied. The remaining 17 vehicles at a cost of 12 million were a day. That's what $204 million is for the 17. Where are they? We, as a party, and we, representing the conscience of the Gambian people, say that, Mr. President, please give us an account of those vehicles through your secretariat. We have to do that. But one thing that Mr. President promised in 2016 is that there will be a new constitution. Now, it is now 8 years, and we are going to 9 years since Jammeh left this country. Since then, there has not been a new constitution for the Gambia. Since Jammeh left, the reforms that moderator referred to have not been undertaken. Still, you have the laws of Jammeh's time. In fact, Adama Barrow brags about it. He brags about it. Mr. President, Mr. President, you have really betrayed the Gambian people. Because if you can brag about that, that should be a shame. You should be president, you should be ashamed of that. Because that is what you promised the Gambian people, that you will do away with all those laws and put in place better laws for the people of the Gambia. You, Mr. President, promised that we'll give the good constitution. You still have not. And I marvel at the utterances of some of your defenders. Yes, the government constitution does not have a provision. The current constitution does not have a provision for a two-term limit. But the ECOWAS protocol on democracy and good governance, which was adopted by the Gambia before Adama Barrow became president, stipulates a two-term limit. So those false intellectuals who tell me that he was contested, he didn't contest on NPP party, just one. So are you telling me that independent candidates who contest elections and win, they can contest as many times as they want? Is that what I tell? Because they have not contested on the platform of a political party. What can be a convoluted argument? I do not see an argument as convoluted as that one, an argument as false as that one, an argument as dishonest as that one. We do not expect such type of argument to come from our intellectual class, that it has to be on a political platform. So you can contest as an independent, win, that you can win as many as 10, you can contest as many, you can go in as many as 10 times. That is really false. But we are saying, Mr. President, bring back our constitution. We understand that your cabinet was meeting, and I hope, Mr. President, that you have not really agreed with your people to bring a constitution to us different from the constitution that the CRC presented to the cabinet, and which was also presented to the National Assembly. Because, Mr. President, if you do, then, as they say, you are killing the constitution before it arrives in the National Assembly. Because we have said that any negotiation has to be on the floor of the National Assembly, any negotiation has to be at the committees of the National Assembly. Whatever is to be deleted, whatever is to be added, has to be at that level, not at any other level. Because if you do, United Democratic Party is going to reject it. That we are not hiding our position on that. So if you really want a new constitution, bring that the CRC constitution, we take it to the National Assembly, and all the negotiations will be done there. Whatever we are conceding, we'll consider that level. Whatever we are not conceding, we'll not do at that level. But not a constitution drafted by you and brought to the National Assembly. We are not accepting it. So, gentlemen of the press, we want you to make this position of United Democratic clear and sing it every day. And we will sing it every day at every opportunity. And of course, it is only the reluctance of President Barrow for a new constitution that will make them bring something different from that of the CRC. Gentlemen of the press, wonders never end. I read a press statement, or not, a press release by the spokesperson that President Mabaro has redeployed the governors to the position of permanent secretary, a deputy permanent secretary. I think this was redeployed to the ministries, position of permanent secretaries, deputy permanent secretaries, and the deputy governors were deployed. Those people were not redeployed because the exact words used by the spokesperson is that those people were deployed to the to the office of the Minister of Local Government. I don't know in what section in the Minister of Local Government they might be. But gentlemen of the press, that was done in order to scuttle, suffocate, and stultify the court proceedings that have been instituted against these governors and their deputies. But there's one thing that I know, that when a matter is before the court, no party should do anything that will really remove the carpet under the court. That is contempt. That thing I know. That when a matter is pending in court, you do not do anything that will interfere with the matter before a court. And I believe that a government that is committed to observing the rule of law will really honor, will really abide by that followed principle and leave the courts to decide whatever they want to decide in the matter. But what is more is that you cannot redeploy or deploy someone whose initial appointment is illegal. Because what I do, you cannot put something on nothing. You can only redeploy people or deploy public servants whose appointments are regular. And what they do not know is that once they make that appointment, once they make that pronouncement, we have taken the step to ask the court that those deployment and redeployment are also illegal, because you cannot deploy someone whose appointment is not legal. So we are going to, so they have not escaped. And what is I find strange is that how can the government spokesperson on civil service and matters, I would have expected the Personnel Management Office to issue a statement related to this deployment and redeployment. And in any case, the position to which these people have been taken appear to be promotions. And it is not the president that promotes the positions of permanent secretaries. I think the Public Service Commission, acting on the advice of the Secretary General, those promotions, those things are promotions. The president cannot promote anybody in the civil service. If you do, you are taking somebody's function. So they do not know. So if Brahmadi was saying, Imam fell no. Near fell it, okay. Honestly. Near fell no, it's okay. Honestly. So, Mr. President, it really worries me if you really, because you told me that you rely on a technician, if you just rely on these nonsensical technicians. Take advice from your lawyers in the Ministry of Justice. If you do, you will be doing the right thing. But if you want to rely on these so-called political advisors, on these people that sit with you at your Mbakal lunch, and you think you can do things rightly, you are mistaken, Mr. President. And that is what I want to say to members of the press, that case is the governor's case, is not abated. Those so-called transfers or whatever you call them is nonsensical. We are going to make sure that we set all those things aside and that you cannot interfere with court proceedings. And I'm minded, in fact, to bring contempt proceedings against those people who are behaving this way. But I want to thank you all for responding to our invitation to this press conference or press briefing, and we in fact more of the tour and this governance was just incidental. And but one thing I want to reiterate is that there is no amount of arrests, there is no number of arrests, there is no number of detention that is going to intimidate us. We will make sure that all that the Gambian people want, we achieve it. We are working together with the Gambian people. Whatever we do resonates well with the Gambian people, and we will ensure that 2026, the people of the Gambia will have a government that they deserve, a government that really responds to their